Alright, welcome back to my third bolt action video on the channel. Quick update on my Hungarian army. We've got our first Panther. I plan to get two eventually, so I'll have 141 and 142. And 141 will have a commander. But as for now, 142. It's looking nice. And then we also have an Opal Blitz, which as I'm filming, I've realised I've forgotten to put a wash just there. I reckon I've done the same on the other side too, haven't I? I have too. I'll, as soon as this video is over, I'm going to get a wash and just get underneath there, which is missing a wash. Rip. But, yeah, I gave an attempt at highlighting, and I did okay up here and on this bit, and I think I did pretty well on the back, actually, but I've definitely stuffed up here, and I'll need to fix that up. But, yeah, so there's the Opal. Not 100% sure how I feel on the glass. Unfortunately, when I went to go put the glaze on it, I found out I'd left my glaze bottle open and my glaze had dried up. So, those are my two new vehicles for my Honved. Next to them, I get some of my old units from my Polish forces in the east. And what I wanted to do in this video as well is do a bit of a video explaining how to kill tanks when you don't have a tank. US Army Field Manual 1710 says that the best way to kill another tank is with a tank. Take that, people who think tank destroyer doctrine was a real thing. However, maybe you're playing a late war army, or maybe you just don't have a tank. And coming across something like a Panther or a Tiger or something, one of those big German cats, pretty scary. Couple of things. One, bolt action is an infantry game primarily. If somebody's brought a heavy tank, a tank that costs more than 250 points, is something you can just ignore and still win a game. For the most part. If it's something that's got a big HE, or perhaps like a, one of those 4-inch HE templates, or it's got 85 machine guns or something, that might not be so great. But most tanks, especially most heavy tanks, they've just got one big gun, maybe a Hull MMG, the Pintle, the coax, and maybe a Pintle. They're not a particularly big threat. They can only target one unit, or maybe two if they're shooting these at different targets. But if they do split their fire, they're doing a lot less damage than what they could be doing. Tanks are not that scary. But how can you kill them if you don't have a tank yourself? The anti-tank gun. In the Second World War, the anti-tank gun, amongst all combatants, was the #1 primary killer of tanks. Anti-tank guns killed more armoured vehicles than anything else. But anti-tank guns have a couple of disadvantages. Their first one, they've only got a 45-degree arc of fire, and so if your anti-tank gun is facing like this, and a tank rocks up here, you're going to be taking a -1 to rotate your gun to face at the tank to shoot at it. Secondly, anti-tank guns are a waste of an artillery spot, because unless you're taking a heavy anti-tank gun or a super heavy anti-tank gun, you're cutting out a lot on your HE, and you really need that artillery spot for something to kill infantry with. Now, if you're playing something like the Soviets and you can get a divisional gun, like this is here, that can double as both an anti-tank gun and a howitzer, brilliant. The 88 for the Germans does the same kind of thing. I think the Americans have the 90mm anti-aircraft gun that does the same thing, but those tend to be very expensive. The Ziz 3 is, I think, the only one in that category that's at a reasonable price range. Actually, no, the British 25-pounder as well. Yeah. So, let's say you've taken a howitzer, though. What can we do with our infantry? Well, if you're playing Axis powers in Europe, Japan, or the Soviet Union, you have the Panzerfaust. Now, the Panzerfaust is pretty good. If it hits, it's going to mean very bad news for the tank. However, Panzerfausts are at most limited to 4 in a squad, and that's for your late war Germans. My Soviet Guard squads here can only take 1. My Hungarians can only take 2. And you're only taking them if you're late war. Anti-tank grenades. Alright, let's talk about them. Anti-tank grenades give you two very important functions. Number one, they remove the need to take a test for tank fear. Normally, if you assault a tank, you need to take a test for tank fear. I'm now struggling to remember if it's an order or a morale test. Either way, you're taking it at whatever your unit is. So if you're veteran, 10, if you're regular, 9, if you're inexperienced, 8, but with a -3 modifier. And so that means for regulars, it's a 6, and even veterans are struggling on a 7. Anti-tank grenades give your unit the special rule tank hunters, and they lose tank fear when they make assaults. The other important thing they do, when you charge a tank, you can only do superficial damage to it. I'm talking a proper tank like this. You can only do superficial damage to it. That means whatever you score on the damage table, you minus a 3. So if you score a 6, you're setting it on fire. And if you score 1, 2, 3, or 4, you're just shaking the crew. And I'm going to be honest, I can't remember what you get if you score a 5. Immobilized. Yeah, you immobilize the vehicle. So that's really all you're doing. If you score the 6 and you set it on fire, you've got a very minute chance of destroying the vehicle. However, got your anti-tank grenades? Easy. Now you're doing proper damage to the tank. That means 1 stunned, 2 immobilized, 3 on fire, 4, 5, 6 destroyed. Charging a tank, however, we got to think about how we do it, because a tank is going to be devastating in a charge situation. So let's say we're starting, I'm not even going to count the proper distance, but let's say that's 7 to 12 inches away. So it's outside of surprise charge. This tank's got a 3-inch template on its main gun, or it's got 6 MMG shots because of Hitler's buzzsaw, where perhaps an allied tank, it would have so it's got 6 from each MMG, meaning 12 in total, where an allied tank it'd have 10. That's going to be devastating to your squad trying to charge the thing. When you do charge a vehicle and you're actually in combat against the tank, the way it works is first you have to hit the thing. So if the tank has executed a run order, you just automatically miss all hits. If the tank executed an advance order, you're hitting on 6s. Anything else, you're hitting on a 4, 5, or 6. So firstly, you're already having a pretty hard time to actually hit the tank. With my 8-man squad here, if this tank hadn't moved, on average, I'm getting 4 hits in. Which is not particularly great, because the way to destroy a tank in close combat is you roll a d6 and then you add the number of hits that you got. You then need to beat the vehicle's front armor value. So on this Panther, its front armor value is a 10. So at the best case scenario roll, I still need to get 4 hits in to be able to kill the vehicle. So to kill vehicles with infantry that don't have any anti-tank weapons, you want a big squad, you want anti-tank grenades, and you really need surprise charge. You need to be charging from within 6 inches or from behind a piece of cover. They would charge like this, I think. Yeah, so the vehicle's not getting its special rules. Soft skin vehicles and open top vehicles, you're in luck though. If you score a hit, the vehicle's destroyed. That's how to kill vehicles without anti-tank weapons.